Hello everybody and welcome to the Showcast, a series of candid conversations from film festivals and film markets everywhere, brought to you by The Film Verdict and hosted by yours truly, Matt Micucci. Welcome film enthusiasts to a captivating new episode fresh from the 2023 San Sebastián International Film Festival in Spain. And today, we've got a special treat for you as we dive into an exclusive conversation with the talented Belgian filmmaker Delphine Girard. She's here to share insights about a remarkable feature directorial debut, Through the Night, which recently garnered acclaim in the Giornate degli Autori section at this year's Venice Film Festival. This gripping cinematic experience is part thriller, part exploratory drama, and it's a successor to Girard's Oscar-nominated short film, A Sister. The film kicks off with a heart-pounding car sequence and a woman in danger calling the police while on the passenger seat of a fast-moving car. She is the victim of an aggression, and the movie then delves into the aftermath of this event, the ensuing trial, and the lives of its three key players in the days, weeks, and months that follow. Get ready to be immersed in the world of Through the Night as we unpack its complexities and artistic brilliance, including the origins of the story and the nuances of its representation of victim and aggressor. But we also get to find out more about Girard herself, her influences, her filmmaking, and her ambitions. So fire up an Audiotini and listen to the audio waves as they fly through the air. This is the Showcast. Delphine, pleasure to meet you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure to meet you too.
Delphine, you're presenting the film Through the Night, which has been traveling, I guess, and it will continue to travel, award-winning in Venice and the Giornate degli Autori section. As an icebreaker question, I'd like to ask you, what was the starting point for you to explore this story?
So a few years ago, I came across a recording of a 911 call from the US, where you could hear a woman pretending to call a sister, but she was actually calling the police to get help. So I decided to make a short film with this call. So I made a short film called A Sister in 2018, and we screened that film around the world, I guess, and I could feel at that point that I was like the character would stick with me, and I was asking myself question about, okay, so this is the thriller part of that story, but what would happen to them in the aftermath? And so I started doing some research just to know in Belgium, because I'm based in Belgium, what would happen in the justice system, what would happen in terms of the institutions, really. And that was really the starting point of my reflection for the feature.
So it started off as a short, then became a feature.
Yeah. And the short is actually the first 15 minutes of the feature now.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So the first 50 minutes we see were the short film. So it must have been a difficult topic to research, right? How did you go about doing that? And what was the psychological impact on you personally while you were working on that side of the project?
So it was kind of easy to find people that accept to talk to me. That like when you say I'm writing something, it's always like a magical key or something. So I went and assist to trials. I talked with lawyers. I talked with doctors. I talked with a lot of people from this kind of area. But yeah, actually that's the first time somebody asked that question, and I think it's a really interesting one because it was a heavy dialogue for me for the last years I was working on that project. So it's difficult because I felt an emergency and a need to tell that story, but at the same time I could feel at one point, okay, this is going to be months thinking about that and watching the footage and directing actors and everything with this topic. So I could feel at one point that it was heavy on me personally, but still I felt it was a conversation that I wanted to have and a story that I wanted to tell. So
yeah, and I'd like to know more about that. Why did you feel like it was a story that you wanted to tell personally?
There's different layers for that answer, but I think mostly I felt like when we made A Sister, it was just before the Me Too movement. So I could see as we were screening it that the discussion evolved, and it was suddenly really a hot conversation, like in everywhere. And I could see the thing evolving, and I felt that I wanted to create a story that could contain three characters and also the aggressor in the storyline, and I felt that I wanted to make a film that could contain complexity, because I felt like we have this tendency as human beings to oversimplify it and trying to make things black and white, to just deal with them more easily. And I feel for those issues, you cannot do that. It's not working when you do that.
I think also one of the tendencies is when there's a film where there's an act of violence committed, whether it's sexual or otherwise, the person who is the receiver of this act of violence is portrayed as a victim. But here it's a little more realistic than that. I mean, the lead character, the lead woman in this film is not a victim to you, right?
She's victim of this action, but she's not defined only by that. And that's what I wanted to portray, because I felt also when I was doing my research in the judiciary system, whatever.
Judiciary.
Yeah, sorry. My English is rusty. I noticed that we have such a demand for the victim to be a certain way in order to be heard. And I felt it was such an injustice, because you've been through something already so traumatic, and after that maybe you're not going to be heard because you were dancing with the guy, you were this, you were that. And I felt like I wanted to create a character that still belongs to herself. It's not because she went through that she owed the justice system anything. And yes, in that term, she's not the perfect victim for them to hear her story, but she's free, she's powerful, and I that's the way I imagined the character even in the short film. And as I was writing the feature, I was just like, tell me how you managed to go through that. Like I was really curious to see what the character will do, and I find it brave not to answer. Because it's also, you've been through violence and somebody imposed you something, and after that the justice is going to impose you again another thing. So it doesn't feel right.
And what about the man of the story? How do you, maybe empathize is too much of a strong word, but how do you come up with a fair portrait of this character?
It was a difficult part to write. I really try not to judge him. I really also, like, at one point I decided, okay, I'm not gonna try to explain violence. You cannot explain violence, but I can look at the context that brings him to that place, to that bad place. And also the question that was in my mind writing that line was, okay, how does this guy tells himself the story of that night? Like, does he realize at first, or is he in denial? And that was really interesting for me, because I felt as I was writing the character that it was about confusion for that person. And I really thought about, okay, what does that man need in order to suddenly consider his action? And that's what I try to put in his way, like in the film, because it's a fiction and I want him to change and I want him to realize something at one point.
Another thing I thought was interesting about this film is the use of flashback. Also, I don't know if this is intentional, but throughout the film, I guess it was expanded, as you said, from a short film, but this use of flashback seemed particularly engaging to me, because there's a possibility that some people might feel like maybe who is the victim in this situation. Did you want to play with that perception a little bit?
How can I say? During the editing process, I realized that it was going to be one of, like, maybe a thought for the audience, but I can see it's not everybody that's engaging in that question. So I know it's something. It's not. I didn't want to play, oh, there's a doubt, maybe. But I know it's going to be the question also, because I think as an audience, we are used to be judge of situation, and people put themselves in that position being like, and also I don't know why, but not everybody, but I can see a lot of people being a bit skeptic about what she's saying at the beginning, which I think it's an interesting thing to notice. But I don't want to play with that, because for me, like, even with the short film, like, after the 5 first minutes, I don't feel well, and I know there's something bad happening. So So yeah, that I know it's something that is going to happen with part of the audience, and that's also why I decided to put the last flashback to clarify it, because I didn't want at the end of it that some people be like, oh, but maybe that's not that bad or it's not that violent. I wanted that to be clear, because I know for a part of the audience it's clear from the beginning, but for the rest of it
Absolutely. But it is interesting though to consider that perhaps people might doubt her, and that's indicative of society too, right? Because I mean, you hear it sometimes when we hear it in the news. Maybe there's been an attack on a woman. Politicians would go out and say, oh, she was wearing a mini skirt. It's interesting, right? So maybe it kind of plays with that. It's one of those things.
No, but it's a bit like what I was saying before. It's like, who is the perfect victim? And the justice system is able to deal with aggression when you don't know the guy, when you were you're married and you were you were on your way home or to pick up your children, or some kind of a figure of a perfect woman or whatever. But if you were dating the guy or trying to, suddenly you're suspicious. And as there's so few of those stories that are the cliche thing, it's a predator and you don't know him. It's not most of the case are the people know each other and it was a party and it was something at first that seems nice. So I really wanted to explore the fact that there's not such thing as a perfect victim, and you don't have to answer our judging question. Are we still at a place where we are judging a woman because she wants to take a drink with someone? It's sad.
It is sad, yeah. But speaking of that, what made you decide to become a filmmaker? Is it to kind of tell these stories? Was this part of the reason why? And was it always cinema for you, or was it another art form that you could have pursued as a career? Terrible word, but yeah.
No. I think it really started when I was a teenager. I think at this time, films and storytelling was really something that, maybe the only thing that I was so passionate about, and going back to it. And passionate is not a stronger word. It's not enough to describe, because I was obsessed with film, and I really felt that those stories that I was watching sometimes on repeat, really built me. And comfort me, and I don't know. So I suppose it was always cinema. I really like a lot of other form of art, but I don't feel the same.
For example, what would have been the films that comforted you, as you put it?
I don't know if comfort is the right word for those films, but I was super interested in the Danish Dogma 95 vibe. I watch a lot of Western, of Dogville. Dogville is not in the Dogma, but I was really interested in Lars von Trier and Thomas Vinterberg film when I was a teenager, and a lot of other things. But Andrea Arnold also. I watched Fish Tank a lot of time when I was a young Jean Campion as well. And yeah, I don't know. I think I felt those stories made more sense than life sometimes. So it seems like it I think as a teenager, I saw that as, okay, this is the right path. This is a good thing to use my life for, or something. And I still feel this way.
Because there's a moment in this film, and it's a small moment, but I'd like to ask you about it. When I guess it's the day after the aggression, and the daughter is sitting on the couch beside the mother, who is kind of thinking her own thoughts already, but she hears. I don't know whether it's a film or not. Maybe you know specifically what it is, but it's a children's film, and the dialogue seems to kind of be aggressive towards the woman character in the film that the kid is watching. I wondered whether the inclusion of that was a reference to the media and films, or whether it's a TV series or something like that.
Yeah, we thought that, so it's from a children's film, an animation one, but the idea of the scene was that suddenly, when you've been through something, everything that you hear is not neutral anymore. in like when it's related to violence. And I could imagine that she's like her daughter watched this film every day, but suddenly the fact that there's this kind of violent thing is unbearable or reminds her of and I feel it's one of the side effects of those kind of violence, because it's inside yourself and it's in your body, and suddenly it's all of your surrounding that could remind you of what happened.
Like trauma or something, yeah. And I thought that was a very good observation that I think anybody can relate to, even if it's not an aggression like the one that the woman in this film experiences. If we get a bad news for any reason and we are unable to think of anything else, so something that was one thing is no longer that thing, it's another thing entirely, and we can't stand it anymore. That's very interesting. I just want to talk as well about a little more about the work with the actors too. How do you work with them? Because we talked a lot about characters and how there's no such thing as a perfect victim. I could also say there's no such thing as a perfect aggressor, you know, because that representation is also a bit more nuanced and complex than generalizations in other works. But so how do you work with the actors to achieve that balance?
It was a really different approach for every one of them, also because they have a really different way to work, every one of them three. For the cold taker, it was mostly working on the control, because she's a really controlling character and she's really locked inside herself. So it was finding the intensity but really close from the world, like really shatter or yeah. And Veil is really technical.
Shut away from the world.
Shut away, sorry. She's really technical and really, she has a work ethic that I love. So she was really, because when you watch the beginning of the film, it's super difficult actually to be on the phone, not having anybody in your eyes and like being the face of the emotion actually. So I really love the way she immersed herself in the character. For Ali, I think we had a lot of discussion. I think also because we made the short film before and I know Selma for a few years, I was also inspired by her to write the character, and she has that kind of sometimes humor in dramatic situation, or she distanced herself a bit from drama, which I find interesting in life, and I kind of put that in the character. So I think when she read it, she was like, okay, I see what you mean there, because she knows those kind of attitude. And yeah, we talked a lot about her desire of reparation and not justice. Like she was, for me, that character is obsessed with the idea of being back, being alive, just being alive, being playful again. That really was like what we were looking for that character, even if it's not what's happening in the film. And yeah, she don't want to be trapped in an idea of a victim. And for Dari, we had long talks with Guillaume, and I really loved the way, the position he put himself, because it's kind of tricky for that character. And Guillaume is super clear about his point of view on his character, but we talked about it, about the film, about my point of view, and we could put that away. And he was like, okay, when I'm going to be Dari, I'm going to defend him, and I'm going to like, and he was not judging him when he was like, which is normal, but that was really a relief for me, because I didn't have to be like, no, but do it without trying to make it like, he doesn't think about that he's doing that, and he doesn't realize. And so Guillaume was really physically involved in that character and really looking for, but I think it was heavy to act, honestly, because I could see the confusion is heavy to act at one point. And at the end of the shooting, Guillaume was like, such a relief to go out of that character, also because he told me I could see everybody hating on me. Like I could feel that negativity towards the character, and yeah, it's interesting.
It is a very, very interesting film, because it's one of those films that gets people talking, right? And people are just going to have conversations after this film. Is that what you want? By the way, where does the audience fit into the picture when it comes to your films?
Yeah, I'm happy if we are having conversation after the film. I always have trouble to think about an audience when I'm writing but I'm trying to think about what would I want to see as an audience and it's always a bit frustrating because you work for a few years to make the film like that you dream to watch, and I think I won't be able to watch this film in terms of I see it, but I see every cut, I see the music, so it's always such a weird and contradictory path or journey, because I make the film that I want to see, but I won't able to watch it. But I hope there's other people that will enjoy maybe not the right word for this film, but like experience something that matters for them. So
as a final question, we talked about writing a lot. What stage of the project do you prefer? Do you prefer the writing stage or being on set and working on the film itself?
For me, it's really on set. Like, this is my favorite part because I love the team effort. It's really, I think I write and I do the post-prod just to be on set again. Like, it's really the best thing, and the work with the actors is really what interests me the most. So
what makes it come alive?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Delphine. It's been a great pleasure talking with you. Thanks a lot.
Have a nice day.
And that's a wrap for this episode of the Showcast. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Delphine Girard, whose feature directorial debut, Through the Night, screened at the 2023 San Sebastián Film Festival. I hope you're digging the podcast coverage of this festival so far, and you can look forward to more content from San Sebastián in the following days. But don't forget to also check out previous episodes of the Showcast that are currently available to the endlessly curious cinephile. Till the next time, from the Film Verdict, this is Micucci signing off. See you soon.